Just share with you a story in the Bible in Nehemiah. This is from chapter 4. And the situation here in ancient Israel was this, is that the Jews had been spread out. The walls of Jerusalem, their capital city, had been torn to the ground. They had lost. They had failed. Their dreams were completely shattered. And this very dreaming, visionary person decided, no, it's time we go back and we rebuild these things. We rebuild these walls and recapture the glory. They had a dream. And it talks about how the people were rallied together to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem and restore her to her former glory. And it talks about the incredible struggle that the Jews went through to make this happen. In fact, it said that some of the people, the surrounding countries, decided to stir up trouble. This is somewhere in verse 7 or 8 in chapter 4. They decided to stir up trouble and to fight against the people of Jerusalem. It says, but we kept on praying to our God, and we also stationed guards day and night. And it goes on down as the workers rebuilt the wall. They had a tool to help them rebuild the wall in one hand, and they had a weapon strapped on them on the other side, just in case somebody tried to attack them. Now, it's hard enough to build something whenever you're focused on it, but can you imagine trying to build something and fulfill a dream that's really hard with a weapon on your side, thinking that at any moment from the backside you're going to be attacked? That's really difficult. And then it even goes on down to say here, verse 22, 23, somewhere in there, it says, I even slept in my work clothes at night. My children did, the workers, and the guards slept in theirs as well. And we also kept our weapons close by. It is very, very difficult to fulfill a dream. So I'm just going to share this with you. I plead guilty. Andrew Fortner, I plead guilty to being a dreamer. And I can remember ever since I was a child, I would get these ideas in my head that if someone were to do a psychoanalysis, they would probably say I was crazy. And I can remember from a little kid, I wanted to be a race car driver. I mean, I would dream about that. That was my goal. I wanted to do that. I watched them go around and around on TV, and I thought, I want to do that. That would be fun. And so as a little kid, and my brother and I, we would try to build cars. I remember taking a door one time and trying to put wheels on it. And we ran into a problem. It's like, dude, how do we make an engine? We couldn't figure it out. It was hard, okay? And we were really disturbed by that. I remember one time my brother tried to make an airplane, and he out of cardboard. And it was amazing. I mean, he put some refrigerator boxes together, and we ran, and he jumped off a hill and fell, you know? I mean, it was really crazy, but we would dream. And what's weird is in a way, it kind of got fulfilled. My dad got us into soapbox derby racing, and so I got to be a race car driver. Didn't have to worry about the engine. You don't need it. But it was fun. And then when I got a little older, I got into music. And I thought, man, I want to be successful at music. And I started to get these dreams. And my dream was to, more specifically, it was to play a violin concerto. And if you don't know what that is a solo for violin and orchestra, where you've got the whole symphony orchestra playing with you, and you're playing the solo part, just before a huge audience. And that's really hard to do. Well, when I was a senior in high school, I got to do that. And it was a dream fulfilled. It was pretty cool. A few years back, Karen and I started to dream about Networks Church. And we thought, boy, that would be cool. And I tell you what, there were a lot of times in those 2 years preparing to launch this church that the cherished aspiration, the ambition, and the ideal felt more like an unrealistic or self-deluded fantasy. And I battled going between both of those all the time. And I kept thinking, God, if you want me to do this, I'll do this. But I want to tell you something. On September 18th, 2005, the day that we launched this church, up until 9:59 on that Sunday morning, I thought, this may be an unrealistic or self-deluding fantasy. I didn't know anybody would show up, you know. I knew I had about 12 people, and they all knew me, you know, and loved me, so they're going to show up, you know, I mean, just to pat me on the back and say, well, hey, we're here, you know. But 180 people showed up. And I was like, yeah! That's cool! And it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. It was a dream fulfilled. But here's the deal, is when I get an idea, I cannot sit on the couch and let it go. And I've got some other dreams that are yet unfulfilled. One of those dreams, probably the greatest one, is to see my children grow up to be men and women of God. I mean, that's a dream. And that's going to be a hard one because I'm only given so much time to really, really put into that, and I know that throughout their whole lifetime I'm going to have some say for sure, but that's something that they're going to have to, they're going to have to do on their own. And that's a dream for sure. Another dream that I have that I haven't shared with many people is I want to make a movie. I want to make and produce a movie, and I've even got an idea of what it's going to be about. And I'll walk through the day and I'll get this idea and say, that would work. That would work. I don't really know how to make that happen, but that's a dream. And I've got some others that I probably wouldn't want to share with you, and you'd probably do a little psychoanalysis and think, yeah, he was crazy. But you already know that anyway, so it's no big deal. No big deal. Dreams. Okay, so I want to flip it just a little bit. Now let's talk about God. Let's think about God. Okay. Here's a question for you. Does God have dreams? Does God have a dream? Well, if you go back to those things, my observations about dreams, okay, without dreams we are nothing. Well, there's nobody that was before God, so he could never not be nothing. So, based on that question, no, he probably doesn't. It wouldn't fit. Number two, unfulfilled dreams are painful. Well, God can do anything because he's God and he's above all. He spun the universe into existence with his words. He made us by some dust and breathing into us. There's nothing that he can't do. So, no, he probably doesn't have a dream. And then number three, you look at that, fulfilling a dream is flipping hard. Well, what is above our God? What's too hard for our God? I mean, he's God. He can do anything, right? I mean, so you'd probably almost have to say, well, no, God doesn't have dreams. There's no need for it because he's God. But I want to tell you guys something, and this is really interesting. Is I read the Bible, and I dig deeper and deeper into Scripture and try to get an understanding of what's going on more and more, here's what I've discovered, is I believe that there is one dream that God has. There's one dream. And here's what it is. And write this down, and it can be summed up in one word. And the word is reconciliation. Reconciliation. What does that word mean? It means this. It means to restore relations between. It means to cause to coexist in harmony, make or show to be compatible, settle, bring peace. It's reconciliation. All right, you say, Pastor Andrew, what do you mean? What are you talking about? What does that have to do with God? Okay, look at this scripture. 2 Corinthians 5:18. It says, God has done it all. And I'm reading from the Contemporary English Version. So if you know the scripture, it's going to say it a little differently than what you're used to. It says, God has done it all. Basically, that's saying God's the bomb. He has no dreams because he can do everything. God's done it all. He's God. There's nothing above him. But then he goes on to say something really interesting. He sent Christ to make peace between himself and us. And most translations use the word reconciliation between himself and us. Okay, and what is that speaking of? It's speaking of the work that Christ did on the cross to reconcile God with man. Because of our sinfulness, the separation exists there, and God is trying to pull that back together. And I got to thinking about it. That is the one dream that God has right now, that he is longing for more than anything, is to make peace between himself and his creation, his people. That's the one dream that he's got. And you know, Gary spoke last week, and I was almost in tears as he was crying and sharing about him and his son, and relating that to God. And it really got me thinking a lot about this. And I thought of an illustration here to show why this is such a big dream for God to do this. Okay? Obviously, we see it because of what he allowed his son to die. But think of it this way. Okay? I love my daughter, Karis, incredibly. And as she's growing up, Karen has been doing some substitute teaching a couple days of the week, so Karis will kind of hang out with me, and she's just kind of my partner. You know, during the day, and I'll do some work, and she'll hang out, and I'll take her to the coffee shop with me, and she'll kind of play and hang out, and she's just my little partner. And I always loved her before, but it's like I just keep growing more and more attached to her. And